Today I'm going to be talking about one of the most recognizable works of surrealism, The Persistence of Memory, which is 9.5 by 13 inches. It was painted in 1931 and was first exhibited at the Julian Levy Gallery. 2 years later, it was donated and remained in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. First, Salvador Dali utilized precise, fine-lined, and hyper-realistic contour lines to define both rigid and melting forms, blending rather than separating. Lines with shadow to create a smooth, dreamlike, and detailed texture. These lines are mostly thin, defining the detailed, distorted, and organic shapes of the clocks, the central figure, and the landscape. Dali was known for using an earthy ochreous palette consisting of warm colors that contrast cool, soft colors such as warm golden yellows and oranges, soft blues, earthy browns, and pale flesh tones. He deliberately avoided the loose, buddy brushwork and blended color typical of Impressionism, as well as bright, artificial-looking synthetic hues. Instead, his colors were often mixed and smoothly blended to create realistic light, shadow, and atmospheric depth. Dali applied paint with fine brushes to achieve an almost photographic clarity, carefully building smooth, seamless surfaces without visible brushstrokes. Dali's technique created a sense of hyperrealism, even in the most fantastical elements, such as the melting clocks and distorted forms. Unlike painters who used loose, impressionistic textures, Dali avoided rough or spontaneous application, instead making every detail precise so that even surreal, impossible elements felt tangible and believable. By hiding his brushwork and focusing on these hyperrealistic textures, Dali gives the dreamscape a still, sterile, and eerily silent quality, making the impossible distortion of time feel disturbingly real. In The Persistence of Memory, traditional linear perspective is maintained yet destabilized. The shallow foreground plane stretches into a distant horizon, but the vast emptiness amplifies the strangeness of the scene rather than creating reassuring depth. The eye is pulled from the cluttered foreground toward the vast empty horizon, creating a sense of infinite lonely space. Dali orchestrates the composition with eerie precision, leaving large areas of open space that intensifies the isolation of each object. The emptiness feels charged, as if time itself has slowed or collapsed, drawing the viewer into a psychological landscape where stability dissolves and reality becomes uncertain. The story behind The Persistence of Memory is rooted in Dali's paranoid critical method, a process of capturing subconscious dreamlike visions with hand-painted photographic precision. The landscape, which is near Dali's birthplace, Figueres, Spain, consists of sharply defined cliffs, which are in the painter's childhood, and calm sea in the background, creating a sense of stillness. The empty shoreline symbolizes emotional emptiness, and the bright sea symbolizes memory and reality, which contrasts with the dark foreground, which is reminiscent of an imaginary and overwhelming world. Next, watches are placed on different surfaces, over a platform, a barren tree branch, and a biomorphic figure. These represent these three temporalities: past, present, and future, suggesting that time is psychological rather than fixed. On the left, the mirror embodies inconstancy, as it reflects reality as well as the imaginary, and the olive tree, which is a symbol of wisdom, dry and dead. At the center lies a distorted fleshy creature, a self-portrait of the dreamer, draped in a melting watch to signify that the inner world and its dreamlike nature. It first appeared in a 1929 painting entitled The Great Masturbator, symbolizing the lifelong obsession with masturbation that caused him anxiety. Dali uses symbols like the fly, representing how time flies and passes, and the watch swarmed by ants to represent decay and the anxiety of time. On the bottom left, the orange watch does not melt. It echoes the passing of time as it turned over and covered by ants, which is a bizarre memento mori, symbolizing decomposition and death, inspired by Dali's childhood memories of seeing dead and dying animals such as a bat swarming with ants. In the background, the pale shape of the central figure has often been described as egg-like. The egg is a recurring symbol in Dali's work, commonly associated with birth potential and organic life. Here, its soft, vulnerable quality contrasts with the sharp cliffs and a hard platform, suggesting tension between the fragility and permanence. This painting is from the surrealism style, dramatic and dreamlike, emphasizing unexpected juxtapositions and illogical scenes to reveal deeper psychological truths, especially for the unconscious mind. While 20th century movements such as Futurism and Expressionism experimented with bold color, movement, and emotional intensity, they remained connected to visible subjects and human experience. However, Dali instead explored dream states and irrational imagery to bypass logic to access deeper mental processes. His work shifted art away from the physical world toward internal mental landscapes, where strange symbolism and distorted space suggest hidden desires and subconscious tension. This transformation encouraged artists to embrace dream logic and unconventional imagery to access deeper truths beyond conscious control. This painting is made with oil paint on linen canvas. Since oil is made of linseed oil, oil's slow drying time allowed Dali to meticulously render, blend, and manipulate the fine details of the melting washes over several weeks. This technical patience allowed him to create smooth, lifelike transitions that made solid, rigid metal appear soft and fluid. Unlike many traditional painters who relied on detailed underdrawings, Dali often began the paintings with minimal preparatory sketches and relied on precise planning in his mind. He employed the paranoid critical method, which involved deliberately inducing a state of paranoia or double images so that the mind could perceive multiple interpretations simultaneously to guide the composition, transforming subconscious images into concrete, sharply defined objects. By employing chiaroscuro, the strong contrast of light and shadow, he gives his surreal and impossible objects a convincing three-dimensional quality. This made dreamlike forms like melting clocks, distorted landscapes, or strange figures appear tangible and almost real to the viewer. This approach bridged the gap between meticulous realism and irrational, dreamlike imagery, making the surreal feel visually and emotionally immediate. Dali lived from 1904 to 1909, who was a Spanish painter, printmaker, sculptor, writer, and filmmaker known for his surrealist and bizarre works. Dali's objective with this painting was to capture the irrationality of the subconscious, specifically by challenging the rigidity of time. By depicting melting watches, Dali illustrated that time is subjective and irrelevant in the dreamlike world of memory. He wanted the viewer to question their own perception of reality and reflect on the instability of time. Rather than presenting time as fixed and logical, Dali challenges viewers to confront how fluid it is. Dali valued emotional and psychological truth over strict visual realism, aiming for the viewer to feel this strange, dreamlike distortion of reality rather than simply understand the image intellectually. Through exaggerated and surreal imagery, the viewer becomes more aware of the fragility of structure, order, and certainty. Dali places the audience in an uneasy confrontation, encouraging them to experience the disorientation and mystery of time instead of observing it rationally. The inspiration for this masterpiece came from a plate of runny camembert cheese. After a dinner of very strong cheese, Dali reflected on its super soft nature while staring at an unfinished landscape of the Portliget Cliffs. In a moment of paranoid critical inspiration, he envisioned the cheese melting into the shape of pocket watches. He rushed into his studio, and in just 2 hours he transformed a simple landscape into a meditation on the fluidity of time. This painting is a definitive masterpiece of surrealism, bridging traditional academic technique with the psychological theories of Sigmund Freud. By rendering the irrational with hand-painted photographic precision, Dali created a universal icon for the dream state. His imagery of soft time has since permeated pop culture, film, and modern digital art. Dali's legacy endures as a testament to the power of the subconscious, proving that even a mundane observation like melting cheese can be transformed into a profound exploration of the human experience. Ultimately, the persistence of memory remains profoundly relevant today, challenging viewers to question the stability of the world around them and to reflect on how much of what they experience is shaped by the mind, memory, and subconscious rather than by external reality. This is my work side, and thank you for listening.